Brethren, the Story of a Great Recovery. Part 1, England and Wales. Chapter 23. The Story of the London Missionary Meetings. The story of assembly life and spiritual activity in the metropolis would be incomplete without some reference to what has become known as the London Missionary Meetings. Few gatherings of the Lord's people have in recent years so powerfully influenced the work amongst the heathen as those soul-inspiring meetings, where, from the far-flung fields of labor in regions beyond, ambassadors of the cross meet in happy concord with fellow Christians from almost every corner of the homeland to render an account of their stewardship in the Lord's vineyard. It was about the year 1894 that Frederick Stanley Arnott, whose name will ever live in the annals of missionary pioneer work in darkest Africa, conceived the idea of commencing a weekly prayer meeting, having as its object the remembrance, before the throne of grace, of those who, in obedience to the call of the gospel, had gone forth in implicit faith, looking solely to the Lord to supply their needs. The first meeting was held at the Aldersgate Street Y.M.C.A. in the afternoon, but the hour not being suitable for businessmen and others who were interested, few were able to attend. It occurred to Alfred W. Fisher that a monthly prayer meeting at a convenient hour in the evening would probably be found to be more suitable for such a purpose, and after consulting Mr. Arnott, who at once expressed his full agreement with the suggestion, a meeting of elder brethren was called at the Gospel Hall, Lewisham. London overseeing brethren responded happily to the invitation to that meeting, which was quite conversational in character. The idea of a monthly prayer meeting in the evening was favorably received, and God gave a wonderfully unanimous judgment to those present as to the desirability of such a meeting. After further waiting upon God for guidance, it was provisionally agreed that the prayer meeting be held at the Friends Meeting House, at Devonshire House, Bishopsgate Street, on the last Friday in the month. A circular letter giving an outline of what had been considered and proposed was drawn up and addressed to the London assemblies, signed by John Churchill, J. G. McVicar and Joseph W. Jordan, commending Francis Stunt, Alfred W. Fisher and A. Milne Kyd as suitable brethren to undertake the responsibility entailed by such meetings. These monthly meetings, it was suggested, would afford an opportunity for Christians from different parts of the metropolis and district to come together for the purpose of supporting by prayer those whom they knew serving the Lord in other lands. The first meeting took place in April, 1894, not in the Friends Meeting House but in an upstairs room on the Devonshire House premises. Recalling those epoch-making days, Mr. A. W. Fisher writes, "Missionary brethren were not so well known in those days in the London meetings, and it occurred to a few of us to have a gathering at which some of those who had returned from the foreign field should be asked to address us." The first of these meetings, now called the Annual Missionary Meetings, was held in 1895. On that occasion we simply had the afternoon and evening of Friday. In 1896 there was a prayer meeting on Thursday evening and other meetings on the Friday. In the year 1912 several changes took place which necessitated the appointment of other brethren to act as conveners. Mr. Fisher had gone to Canada and Mr. Stunt intimated that his age and the distance of his residence from London prevented his continuing, while Mr. Kyd, whose activities in connection with Clapton Hall made increasing demands upon his time, expressed a desire to be free for the work of the assembly with which he was so closely attached. Consequently, a meeting of elder brethren was held at Devonshire House, when the position was reviewed, and John T. Churchill, G. J. Hyde and Joseph W. Jordan were asked to act as conveners, which position they accepted, continuing to serve in that capacity until 1925. Alfred W. Fisher, W. Stunt and A. Milne Kyd then took over the work, and with other fellow workers have discharged this important service till the present time. During the long years since the inauguration of these gatherings, meetings for prayer and intercession continued with increasing interest, the fruits of which will only be revealed in a coming day. The prayer meetings were held at Devonshire House until the buildings were demolished, and about the year 1924 it became necessary to remove to the premises of the Sunday School Union in Old Bailey. Later, the meeting was transferred to the Aldersgate Street Y.M.C.A., where it is still held. Whilst those seasons of intercession on behalf of the Master's business in other lands continued to occupy a prominent place in the hearts of the Lord's people, so the missionary meetings, the offspring of those hallowed hours of prayer, increased in number, till, in 1913, it became imperative that larger premises be secured. These gatherings had grown to such an extent that many were unable to obtain access, causing much disappointment, particularly to friends who had come up to London from the country to attend. It was decided, therefore, to remove to Kingsway Hall, which provided nearly double the accommodation. Here the meetings were held for 9 years, but owing to the increased numbers of Christians attending, a still larger hall had to be found. Thus the Central Hall, Westminster, with a seating capacity of 2,700, was secured for the purpose, and the annual conference has taken place there since then. Only those who have been privileged to attend the inspiring meetings at the Central Hall during recent years, and to feel the impulse of the spiritual atmosphere which pervades, can in a measure realize how mightily God has walked through this divinely ordained channel, since the advent of that little prayer meeting in a hired room in Aldersgate Street less than 50 years ago. And it is consistent with these gatherings having arisen out of a prayer meeting, that 2 hours are apportioned for prayer on Thursday, the opening day of the conference, and 45 minutes on Friday, the time for prayer occupying the beginning of each day's proceedings.